Good evening, I'm Turaho Moria with Sunday's news. A former member of parliament has questioned the option to revert to the first-past-the-post voting system. D. Kewanu says this will stir violence and encourage territorial voting in the communities. He says leaders must not change the current voting system, or better still, consider views from the general public.
I'm just a private member.
The former Mendi Open MP spoke to EMTV News expressing his concerns surrounding the type of voting system to be used in the 2022 national elections. According to him, a second reading has been done in Parliament through a private member's bill. Mr. Kewanu questioned why leaders in Parliament are opting to do away with the LPV system.
So my emphasis now for our leaders is for them to improve what we already have, and let's not bring and change laws for the sake of benefiting one or two. I don't know. I don't think it benefits. So we need a referendum of people that should get the views from the rest of the country. Then you bring a bill to Parliament to change the system. So if the people don't like it, well, get the views from the rest of the country.
A few weeks back, Enga Governor Sir Peter Ipatas also spoke about this issue. Sir Peter says his party disagrees with the bill and believes the limited preferential voting system is appropriate.
First past the post and People's Party resolved now limited preferential voting, LPV. That's what we will still support. Why go to a system that's already we said we won't go back to?
The LPV system was introduced in 2007 after various reports of election violence around the country in the 2002 elections. So far, 3 national elections have used the LPV system. The former Mendi MP says if leaders in Parliament are not careful, reverting to first-past-the-post can stir violence.
First-past-the-post will bring election violence because for that many tribes and everyone wants to be aligned with the tribal groups, aligned with the... and that has been the thing of the past before 2002, and that has caused a lot of problems. That's why we brought the LPV. So now we want to even go back to the old system, and I think I see there's problems in the country. We may have failed the election. We may have even not even run even 2022 because this system that has failed us in 2002 and prior to that, we want to bring it on board. I see there's a problem for this country.
He went further stating that the general public should be consulted before pushing this bill in Parliament. He is also concerned that crucial factors to run elections are not ready and the Electoral Commission needs better support to fix its systems.
Things are not moving forward like the roll-out dates. Things are not moving forward. I had only a few months away, and I'm not sure whether the election 2022 can be implemented effectively and swiftly. So in that instance, we may call for outside agencies to run our elections, like United Nations, like other countries that can assist where we are not in a position financially. And for this, we haven't really improved our systems. And we may not be, there may be reliability in terms of the outcome.
Jack Lapava Jr., National EMTV News.
2 gunmen attempting to hold up a number of vehicles along Boroko Drive in the nation's capital this morning were unsuccessful and ended up being caught and beaten up badly and eventually apprehended by police. The series of events happened near the Boroko Anglican and Boroko United Church premises just when church services had concluded.
This man was beaten up by those living in the area and also by those whom he held at gunpoint and attempted to hijack their vehicles. According to an eyewitness account off camera, this man with one other counterpart attempted to hold up a vehicle near Boroko Anglican Church along Boroko Drive at around midday today. After being unsuccessful on the carjacking attempt, they tried holding up another vehicle parked near the same church but further up the street next to Lodge 10, but was still unsuccessful as boys and men living in the street came out with stones and attacked them. One of the men ran ahead of the other and went in the direction of where the National Broadcasting Corporation residential properties are located along Boroko Drive, leaving behind this man. This man then attempted to hold up yet another vehicle near the Boroko United Church gate when the people living in the street attacked him and beat him up badly on the main road. Traffic on the road became jammed up as a result, and police arrived at the scene a few minutes later, apprehending the beaten-up man. The other man who tried to escape was also beaten up by the public and apprehended by police. This man was the last one to be held at gunpoint near the Boroko United Church before the gunman was caught, beaten up and apprehended. He and his wife went to pick up their son at the church and were parked near the church gate awaiting their son when it happened.
My missus was telling stories with relatives and I was in the car. And then I heard this group of boys running down this way, and then they started throwing stones this way. And I didn't know what to, and then somebody came to my door and said, "Father, give me the key." He got a gun out, and he put it on my head and said, "Give me the key." I said, "You wait, I don't have the key. I don't have the key, you wait."
Similar attempted holdups have been reported in other parts of Port Moresby in recent weeks. Dennis Orere, National EMTV News.
Prime Minister James Marape says Papua New Guinea isn't only vulnerable to the effects of climate change, its forests also play an important part absorbing carbon dioxide, but that forest health continues to be subject to unsustainable logging, Northern Governor Gary Juffa says. Community advocacy group Act Now says forests are a source of livelihood to the people.
The Prime Minister in Parliament reminded the nation of the important role forests play not only to PNG but the entire globe.
We are an oxygen-producing nation. We are a great carbon sink. Our forest today cleanses the global atmosphere of over 90 to 100 million metric tons of carbon dioxide every year.
Forests on the island of New Guinea, PNG on the east and Indonesia on the west form the third largest rainforest behind the Amazon and Congo. Mr. Marape, in his recent address to the United Nations, called on the industrial countries to play their part.
It is time the big carbon emitters of planet Earth own up and apologize to small island states and all other victims of climate change. And I make this statement with no apologies. And today I make a call for all of us, and especially to the big carbon-emitting nations who are now enjoying their national economic transformations through industrialization, to pause, think, and take responsibility to save our planet.
In as far as funding is concerned, he stressed PNG mustn't be seen as a country only vulnerable to climate change effects, but also a contributor. After all, its forest is helping the world.
We're just not a victim of climate change, but we have this global asset. We clean your pollutions. We only emit 10 to 15 million metric tons of carbon a year.
The forest, however, has come under threat by illegal and unsustainable logging.
Such deficient forest governance and poor adherence to our own forest-related laws and regulations has been ongoing for decades.
Local NGO Act Now has done research into the area and is concerned.
Between 1972 and 2014, PNG lost 9 million hectares of primary rainforest, an area that is approximately the size of Portugal. This includes areas where the forest has been completely cleared and areas where forest has been degraded through selective logging operations. Since 2014, the SABL land grab and the expansion of export logging has seen these areas grow even more larger.
The rainforest in PNG is the lifeline of the people beyond its monetary use. Eddie Tanago says this must not be forgotten.
To think of forests just for the economic value or the carbon they absorb usually underestimates or underrates all the vital roles they fulfill, from sustaining rural communities and our rich cultures, the spiritual beliefs and the traditions, to being an integral part of the youth's ecological systems.
Bradley Valenaki, National EMTV News.
After 5 years of rehabilitation work at Mendi Airport, the changes have been ranked at 46%. A concerned local in Mendi says this has put more burden on the people who travel to Mount Hagen or other centres to get on a plane. Mr. Alex Awesa questioned the contractor, Southern Highlands Provincial Government and the National Airports Corporation over this vital development.
Mr. Alex Awesa came out to the media following a publication of a report regarding airport upgrade around the country. He says this vital service for the people of Southern Highlands is not serving its purpose. Awesa says 5 years of waiting continues and raises more questions.
Why is it taking so long? What's the hold-up? Is it because of contractor incompetency or subcontractor incompetency? What is it? Or are landowners demanding money? Are they infringing into the perimeters of the new fencing? What is it? People need to know.
Mendi Airport is one of the many airports in the country earmarked under the CADI program for rehabilitation and upgrade. A recent publication has ranked its progress at 46%. Mr. Awesa questioned the slow progress by the contractor.
The terminal, they're digging holes in there. There's no structure there. Now we are talking about 5 years, 27 million gone. This company called Sino Hydro, can they explain to the people of Southern Islands what's really going on? When is the airport going to be completed?
While the current upgrade is at hold, people in Southern Highlands travel to other centres to catch a flight. He says this has added more burden to the public and has become very costly. He wants responsible authorities to address this issue.
We can't be in the dark for too long. Airport is the lifeline. Now all the guest houses, lodges, little hotels in Mendi town are close to collapsing because no government employees are coming, no tourists are coming, nothing. Next year, election, so who's going to run the election? People are from the defense and the security force, are they still going to run from Hagen and come down to Mendi? Got to cut down the cost so they can come direct to Mendi. So airport is a vital service.
Jack Lopava Jr., National EMTV News.
You're watching National EMTV News. More stories after these messages. Welcome back. The 2022 National Budget themed Lighten the Burden was handed down in Parliament on Thursday. But the opposition weren't happy with the government and the Department of Treasury not printing the Volume 1 of the budget books on economic and development policy. Despite that, Treasurer Ian Ling Stuckey presented a budget estimated at 22 billion kina, with one of the biggest deficits at 5.9 billion kina.
It wasn't a long budget press lockup on Thursday, like the past years, with an early start to the usual budget presentations. When the budget books were being handed out, many in attendance at the lockup were looking for the Volume 1, which had the economic and development policies. According to the Treasury Department, Volume 1 was still undergoing printing and not available for the budget lockup. Only Volumes 2, Budget Estimates of Revenue and Expenditure for National Government Departments, and Volume 3, Public Investment Program for the National Government Departments and Provincial Governments, were printed and handed out. The three ministers, Minister for Finance John Pundari, Treasurer Ian Ling Stuckey, and Planning Minister Rainbow Paita didn't stay for long, with a brief overview of the budget by the Treasurer and a brief overview of the capital budget by Planning Minister Rainbow Paita. Despite the short briefing, the team at Treasury took the helm and got things going. The budget presented was themed Lightening the Burden. A strong recovery from a modest one in 2021 is expected in next year's budget, with an estimated 5.4% growth. The Marape-led government tabled the 2022 national budget on the floor of Parliament, with Treasurer Ian Ling Stuckey mentioning that the Marape-Basil government are focused on infrastructure and lightening the burden for its citizens. The 22 billion kina budget is with a 5.9 billion kina fiscal deficit, with expected revenue set at 16.19 billion. The budget highlights include an emphasis on infrastructure, most predominantly the Connect PNG policy, which is expected to be completed in 3 phases, with an allocation of 700 million kina plus. In the 2022 budget, a number of road and bridge constructions, including maintenance and infrastructure programs, listed in the capital budget.
So basically, road, bridges, the missing links, when you look at Gulf, Falkland Islands, the Kikori Road, Mosby Road leading to Alatao, Lay from Bololo, Guerrilla coming down to Mosby, East Sepik, West Sepik corridor, West Ubitan, East Ubitan corridors. These major programs under Connect PNG, most of this funding, nearly 1 billion of the PIP budget or capital budget goes to Connect PNG programs.
The health and education sectors have received substantial increases in the 2022 budget, with an estimated 2.5 billion kina in funding for the health sector. COVID-19 emergency response has been allocated 94.7 million kina, with provincial hospitals allocated 315 million kina, with a 50 million kina allocation for the cancer and heart facility at the Port Moresby General Hospital.
Look through the budget books that's there, especially the book that covers PIP. The narrative that we're trying to create is one. We've had issues with health issues in terms of COVID-19, which has exposed the level of health systems that we have, the infrastructures that we have. So the increase in the PIP, major components of it, if you look at it, around 12.3% will go towards health programs. So when we make the announcement and when you see the figures on the budget, one, we're trying to build at least 4 or 5 major provincial hospitals next year going forward. We're looking at re-establishing level 4 district hospitals in the district going forward. And the theme of the budget around the PIP has been centered around unlocking the rural economy.
The education sector will receive 1.4 billion kina in the budget, with 632 million kina allocated for the government tuition fee subsidy, while the higher education loan program has been allocated 65 million kina. The budget also covers early childhood teachers development programs and other funding for improving the infrastructure of the School of Excellence concept and curriculum development.
On education, we are increasing spending from 1,095 million kina to 1,417 million kina, an increase of 333 million kina or 34%. We are providing 632 million for full government tuition fee subsidies, the highest level of fee subsidy support ever provided by any government in our country.
Provinces are expected to get a slash in funding, with the Planning Minister Renbo Paita mentioning that due to COVID-19, 20% of the 10 million kina Provincial and Improvement Program (PSIP) and District Services Improvement Program (DSIP) would be cut, so that 220 million kina could go to hospitals and the construction of 10 new ones as well.
PSIP and DSIP program that we have annually, which is a 10 million kina allocation for districts and provinces. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, leaders have agreed that we're cutting 20% from that component and reallocating that 220 million to all the hospitals in the country and the 10 hospitals that we want to build as well.
The autonomous Bougainville government has been allocated 430 million kina, with a total of 264.24 million for capital expenditure and 165.85 million kina allocated for the operating budget. This is to ensure the implementation of the 2018 to 2022 Bougainville Strategic Plan. Being an election year in 2022, the national government has also allocated 600 million kina for the national elections. The growth of the economy is expected to be broader-based, focused at lightening the burden for the country's citizens, but inflation is expected to pick up slightly.
Including the mining sector, growth is expected to be 5.4%, reflecting the expected recommencement of Porgra, and improvements in octedi production. This continued resumption of growth helps lift revenues. Overall, tax revenues are expected to grow by 12.6%, despite the scare campaign and threats from a particular telecommunication company. We will work with our regulators to ensure that any license holders comply fully to their obligations in our rural areas. We are also expecting higher dividends from the resource sector as commodity prices increase. There is also a recognition that the level of donor grants has been understated in recent years. In addition, for the first time in nearly 20 years, the Australian government is providing direct grant funding to support our budget.
There are a number of revenue measures that will influence collection, which includes the introduction of a banking and telecommunications levy, which is aimed at dominant industry players in both sectors. Apart from increasing tax in certain sectors, the government will be looking to secure revenue from concessional loans and grants from overseas as part of external financing.
We are in a global pandemic. There is an economic slowdown. Now, it hits countries like ours a little bit harder than it hits larger countries. The reality for us is that we're not able to slingshot the growth that happens in our core sectors, in our core areas. So those main towns of Port Moresby, Hagen, Goroka, Lae, Kokopo, Mount Hagen, Madang, for example. So the only spending, the only economic activity, the only drive that's happening is from government expenditure. So again, that's the problem. So the solution, of course, is for us to borrow cost effectively and try and make sure that we are building roads, schools, bridges and hospitals, that we are investing in our youth, our church partnership and our gender agenda.
Overall, the government is focused on a budget repair and economic recovery with a strong focus on the non-resource sector growth and at the same time support family and businesses in the country. The opposition will be debating the budget in Tuesday's sitting, but the non-availability of the Volume 1 document didn't sit well with them. Shadow Treasurer Joseph Lelang voicing the opposition's concern.
Now, that Volume 1 will contain information on the budget, side of the revenue, expenditure, the financing, the debt, how much, which of that it comes from external or domestic. It contains all the information on the reforms that the Treasurer is talking about. In his speech, we want to know what reforms is contained in the budget. So there are a lot of things that are missing.
Former Treasurer in the O'Neill government and former Deputy Prime Minister Charles Abel picked out some issues with the budget allocation.
The legislation that was passed establishing the 20-year framework and funding commitment for Connect PNG. And they brought that legislation in yesterday, passed it today, with no debate, essentially. Very important matters need to be addressed when you're talking about 20 billion kina over 20 years. You're committing the next 4 governments, substantial part of the national budget is being fixed and committed by this legislation. We already had so much bad experiences in establishing powerful organizations with substantial amounts of money in trust funds, or dare I say it, even the Kumul structure, that undermine Parliament, undermine the government, undermine the budget process, and then we come back to a budget that's got no money, with record deficits years and years in a row. Yet we're committing large amounts of money to off-budget organizations run by boards and trustees.
The opposition leader Belden Nama said the budget could not have been tabled without the Volume 1 given to the opposition, calling it a sneaky move by the Treasurer and the government.
So opposition is adopting the position that there was no budget table today. And any budget process today, we're saying that it's illegal. So we take Treasurer's statement as just a minister's statement. It was not a budget statement. So we are saying that this government is very sneaky, and we have a treasurer that I call him Sneaky Stacky. If the opposition do not know, then how do we, as the opposition during our response, scrutinize the government's performance without the volume 1 of the budget document?
You're watching National EMTV News. More stories after these short messages. Welcome back. You're watching National EMTV News. The Chinese government recently gave 1.2 million kina to Papua New Guinea for the purposes of combating COVID-19 in the country. On the occasion of the handover ceremony last Friday, the 26th of November, at the Central Government House, the Chinese ambassador said this assistance comes with no political conditions.
The Chinese government has given $350,000 or 1.2 million kina to Papua New Guinea under its COVID aid fund for Pacific Island countries.
So today, on behalf of the Chinese government, I want to present this additional fund, which is $350,000 US, 1.2 million kina for PNG. And this is another demonstration of China's support to Pacific Island countries, including PNG, in fighting a pandemic and promoting economic recovery.
This is additional assistance to its recent donation of over 2 million kina to the Department of Health and the National Control Center for COVID-19. Chinese ambassador to Papua New Guinea, His Excellency Zhang Fanhua, adds the assistance will continue through infrastructure development as well.
But today I'm also glad to announce that China's side, the embassy will support the following 2 projects. We will fund the construction of a market in Ihu, in Kikori district of Gulf province, which is your district. And we will also fund the power supply extension to a development zone in Vivak of East Sepik province.
Minister for Foreign Affairs and International Trade, Sori Ewe, thanked the Chinese government for this assistance, stressing the significance of the bilateral relationship between the 2 countries.
Excellency, I am really thankful on behalf of my government and our people for continuous support, assistance that Chinese government and Chinese people continue to give. Despite of your own problems within your own countries, particularly to COVID. Excellency, this is not the first that Chinese government has given. You've already given us vaccine, Sinopharm, large sums of it, and of course PPEs that your government has kindly provided to our people. That is now enabling us to at least taking precautionary measures to contain this virus from spreading. But let me also go beyond that. China has always been a very important partner and friend to Papua New Guinea since we entered into diplomatic relations some 46 years ago, and continue to maintain that relationship, and we value Chinese support and contribution very much. Let me also acknowledge, Excellency, the recent 80 million kina that was given us, 96 million kina that was given us a grant aid to the PNG government.
The Chinese government promises to continue this support to Papua New Guinea and to the Pacific region.
So China will continue to develop friendly cooperation with PNG and other Pacific Island countries, which will bring new opportunities.
Adding the Chinese government has no geopolitical interests through this assistance.
And China's help has no geopolitical interest, I must say, and we have no political condition with this assistance. So as long as we put our efforts, the comprehensive strategic partnership between China and PNG will have a very good, even better future, which will bring more benefits to our people, to our two countries. Thank you very much.
Kilawani National EMTV News.
There is not much awareness on early childhood learning in PNG, thus many parents do not send their children to school until they reach the age of 6 or 7. However, due to recent talks on early childhood development, the government passed the Early Childhood Learning Policy in August 2020. However, the implementing phase is still slow.
Early childhood learning in Papua New Guinea remains expensive and is non-accessible to many children who live in rural areas. Seeing the need for early child development, the Marape-led government has introduced the Early Childhood Learning Policy, designed to educate children as young as 3 years old. But the implementing phase has not properly commenced yet, despite the government's aim to prepare children before they enter compulsory education, which is grade 1.
Following, you've been listening to, you've been excited, you've been like, hang on, what is this? Well, it's happened. It's happening this hour as well.
During the FM 100 Talkback show last week, calls on the quick implementation of early childhood learning were made.
So early childhood development, just recently, 2020 early childhood development policy was launched,
yes,
which is in 2020, but we understand it's not implemented as yet. But it's a very important development stage, and I think PNG actually missed that over the past how many years. And we have to, and the government actually has to put its toes down and try to see how they can map that out and to make sure that early childhood development has to go across this nation.
Early childhood learning is considered an integral part of child development and begins with parents at home. But because of the high fees charged by kindergartens, daycares, or preschools, many parents cannot afford to enroll their children at a young age.
We talked about this PNG Council of Churches. I think already there's a talk with the education department, and also churches are involved in that about the development of the early childhood education and also the accessibility, and it will become a compulsory. Once it's with the education department. Now, once it is okay and they pass it through, it will become a compulsory for every child to go to the process of the early childhood education. Yeah.
But Book Belong Pikinini, a non-government organization, is providing early childhood learning at the community level, targeting children under the age of 5. Under their early child development program, children are being taught basic literacy and numeracy skills. Taklagunga, National EMTV News.
Last Saturday was an extraordinary Children's Day for kids at the Lay City Mission's New Life Children's Center. Amidst the singing, dancing and drama came a donation of almost 100,000 kina from DHL. The center manager, Brian Malum, said this was the first time an amount this big was given to them in one donation.
There are currently 10 children being taken care of here at the New Life Children's Center. According to the center manager, Brian Malum, most of the children who pass through here have been victims of sexual abuse. Here they're clothed, fed and counseled by staff who hope to give these children a second chance.
When they stay here, we look after them and we provide basic counseling to those children.
The center has been operating since 2009 with much of the support coming from the city mission, fundraisings and donations from business houses and individuals.
You know, some of them come from abusive backgrounds, some of them are neglected by their own parents. You know.
One of these individuals is Ida Raka, an officer with DHL in Leh. Ida and her family started visiting the center back in 2017, forging a relationship that continues today. Last year, she entered the DHL Got Hard competition, which allows DHL employees across the globe to share their stories about charity work and community engagements they're involved in. Ida was selected for her work with the Children's Center, and the center was given an initial donation of over 3,000 kina from DHL PNG. On Saturday, while the children celebrated Children's Day at the center, a further donation of 25,000 euros was given, which converts to 97,000 kina.
I hope this small donation will, bring so much benefit to the center, especially to the children.
A thankful center manager, Brian Malum, said this is the biggest amount the center has received in one donation. While staff do what they can to help these children, there is a need to train staff for trauma counseling. This is one of the things they hope to improve with the support they've now received from DHL.
So I'm hoping that through this donation of the 97,000, I'm hoping that they will create programs to really help the children with their mental health.
Money, I think this is some of the fruitful use that we can put this money into. And the other is, I've mentioned counseling, trauma counseling.
Lucy Kopana, National EMTV News, Leh.
A foundation called Lopoki Incorporated has concluded a 3-day training in basic housekeeping on remote Nayapio, or widely known as Johnson Island in Manus. Founder Kingston Namun says the training is to empower the locals effectively to take care of tourists or visitors when they come to the island.
Basics in housekeeping taught to the average villager on remote Nayapio. A necessity to accompany the island welcome to those coming to the island for leisure or a getaway. 10 participants were trained in areas of housekeeping, storeroom and stock control, accommodation and guest laundry, and room servicing.
So this training provides basic housekeeping skills to the participants and increases their knowledge and capacity to manage guests who will travel to the island by boat. So Lopoki Inc.'s focus is helping local communities in Manus who are willing to help themselves.
The community has already built 2 semi-permanent buildings to cater for at least 8 guests. The small resort is called the Nayapio Island Getaway Resort.
The community has already taken the initiative to build 2 semi-permanent buildings that has 4 rooms that could accommodate around 8 guests when they visit the community-based resort on the island. The Nayapio Islanders have proven that they want to bring change to their community, so they have worked with Lopoki Inc. To make sure that this training occurs.
The training was conducted in partnership with the Foundation, Manus Provincial Government through its Commerce Division, and Manus Training Center. Bradley Valenaki, National EMTV News.
This weather update is proudly brought to you by MoniPlus, with you always.
The forecast for the afternoon and tonight in the southern region, Port Moresby mostly cloudy with a few showers and possible thunderstorms. Daru and Kerema mostly cloudy. In Popondetta, mostly cloudy with some afternoon showers and possible thunderstorms. And in Alotau, mostly cloudy with some afternoon showers.
The weather update was proudly brought to you by MoneyPlus, with you always.
And that's the news, sports and weather for Sunday, 28th of November 2021. Until then, pleasant viewing, be safe, and bye for now.